The MCU's portrayal of Thanos was truly incredible, and even to this day, 5 years after the release of Avengers Infinity War, it boggles the mind just how the audience was just wowed by this incredibly powerful, captivating, and interesting villain. And due to the horrific circumstances of Infinity War, he just swept through the heroes, villains, whatever he did, there was really no one that could challenge him. But this begs the question, what if Thanos was to perform his invasion or conquest for the Infinity Stones, or Infinity Quest I suppose, during a different time period of the MCU? What if he decided to invade during the Battle of New York in 2012? We're going to be looking at 4 scenarios here. 1, if Thanos arrived and the battle took place exactly as it did and he has no stones, so this was his first stop. 2, basically a death battle between Thanos and everyone present in the battle. 3, the battle takes place exactly the same as it did in the film, however Thanos has the remaining 3 Infinity Stones. And 4, a battle between Thanos with 3 stones and the characters that took place in the battle. Let's get started with scenario number 1. So how exactly would Thanos even reach the battle? As you gotta keep in mind, in Infinity War, he was fast travelling everywhere with the Space Stone, which obviously he won't have. Well, it should come as no surprise to anyone who saw Ragnarok, Infinity War, Endgame, he's going to be travelling to Earth on the Sanctuary. And this is something that will play a drastic role in the battle. You see, during the actual battle of 2012, the Avengers already had a fuck ton of things to deal with. They had the Chitauri infantry on the ground, they had the ships, and of course they had the Leviathans. And also something else to notice in this scenario is that these guys were all completely separated. Iron Man was flying through the air, Cap was on the ground, Hawkeye was on a building, and Hulk and Thor were messing things up, doing their own thing. Essentially, these guys will be separated, and this would be very much a win for Thanos, because you got to keep in mind these guys would have to be united in order to pose any threat to him whatsoever. However, they are busy fighting the Chitauri army, and this is where the Sanctuary would pose a big threat to the heroes, because you got to keep in mind that the Sanctuary was capable of utterly annihilating the Avengers HQ with no issues whatsoever, and the Avengers themselves were completely caught off guard and had no way to counter it. And I can very much see the same thing happening in scenario number 1. And to be completely honest, I don't even think the Ancient One would be able to stop it. I think that this ship would appear with such short notice, it would obliterate more or less everything. She would be more focused around generating shields, protecting herself from the missile fires, then she would be focused around actually taking down the Sanctuary. And this would be the perfect distraction for Thanos, as you got to keep in mind this missile barrage would likely kill most of the Avengers on the spot. So yeah, for scenario 1, I don't think the heroes would have much chance of winning. I think Thanos has, too much in his corner for him to really win, or for him to be denied the victory. Not even the time heist versions of the characters will be able to do much. Having an extra Cap, Iron Man, and Hulk would be good on paper, but these guys are already in a different part of New York doing their thing, so it really wouldn't matter too much. These guys are just separated, they wouldn't be too much of a threat to Thanos whatsoever. The only one who would be a threat is the Ancient One, obviously. However, she would be too busy, she's already occupied with Chitauri soldiers, and she would also be trying to protect herself from the Sanctuary itself. And I think Thanos would just come in, take the 2 Infinity Stones, at Stark Tower. He would kill Loki, get the Mind Stone, he would get the Tesseract. I mean, he was strong enough to crush the fucking thing, so I don't think that energy shield would be too much for him. And then he would just overwhelm the Ancient One and take the Time Stone. So in scenario 1, I see Thanos winning 9 times out of 10. The only reason I see him losing is if he goes for the Ancient One first and she just traps him in the mirror dimension, and with no Infinity Stones, there's not too much he can do to stop her. Anyways, let's move on to scenario 2. So scenario 2 basically entitles what would happen if, Thanos took all of these characters on at once with no Infinity Stones. Well, I think the obvious answer is that with the exception of maybe Mark 85 Iron Man, the Hulks and the Ancient One, I think he would stomp without much difficulty. I don't even think that, this version of Thor would be able to stop him, as he was incredibly weakened. We saw in Endgame, when going against Thor, Cap, and the most updated Iron Man suit, that Thanos completely shredded through all of them. They weren't very much to him. So in the grand scheme of things, I think that Thanos is a powerhouse and would shred through pretty much all of the members on the team. However, that being said, he still has no Infinity Stones, and these guys do have quite a lot of numbers at their disposal. And to be completely honest, guys, I think that this would be a repeat of that one specific part of the Titan battle where, you know, the characters all work together, they managed to restrain Thanos, and they essentially managed to beat him into submission. And this really isn't that far-fetched. You have the Ancient One who already has an Infinity Stone, whether she uses it or not, I'm not sure, but she does have the Crimson Bands just like Doctor Strange. She could potentially restrain him. You have two Hulks present, one of them is extremely pissed off and savage, the other one has the brains. They would be able to restrain Thanos' arms possibly. You have two Iron Man suits, one of them is incredibly powerful and is the updated version of the Mark 50, which already could draw blood from Thanos. You have two Caps present. You have, you know, all of these different characters working together to restrain Thanos. I think that they would be able to do it, and then Thor would maybe drop Mjolnir on his head or something and break every bone in his body. Do I think that this would be extremely unlikely? Yes. However, I do think it would happen more times than not. You know, these guys are packing heat. The Ancient One could trap them all in the mirror dimension and beat Thanos that way, and there'd essentially be not much that the Mad Titan could do. Overall, guys, for Scenario 2, I see the Avengers winning maybe 7 or 8 times out of 10. I think that these guys just have the numbers, and whilst obviously a lot of them won't make too much of a difference, I think that in the right circumstance, you know, the Ancient One leading the charge, I think that they would be able to restrain Thanos and beat him that way. You know, maybe Cap could swing Mjolnir and completely bully him. As you got to keep in mind, this Captain America from Endgame was worthy, it's just that he had yet to pick up Mjolnir. I think that they would be able to beat this version of Thanos, although they would still need a lot of, you know, teamwork for it to be at all possible. Anyways, moving on to Scenario 3. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it, guys. Scenario 3 is without a doubt the biggest stomp for Thanos, and to be honest, I think he wins 10 times out of 10, no difficulty. So why do I say this? Well, essentially, he has the other 3 Infinity Stones in his possession, those being Power, Soul, and Reality, which he uses to great effect during Infinity War. Not only would this make him the most powerful character present, as you got to keep in mind, with just 2 Infinity Stones, he was stated to be the most powerful character in the universe, but you got to keep in mind, the Avengers aren't even united. So if they come across this version of Thanos in like a 1v1 or a 2v1, they're going to get absolutely destroyed. Realistically, the only way for this to be at all possible is if the Ancient One was to take on Thanos. But even then, I don't think this would be possible. You see, the mirror dimension at this point would be completely useless. The Power Stone, Thanos was able to use it in Infinity War, and it completely shattered the mirror dimension. You know, it was a complete counter for it, and he would do it. He's done it before, he would do it again. The only option for the Ancient One would be to use the Time Stone and try beat him that way. However, she's only got 1 stone and he's got 3. And with 2 stones alone, he was already the most powerful character in the universe. But now he's got a 3rd one, I think he would beat her without too much issue. Especially since Strange lost to Doctor Strange lost to Thanos, and Strange was stated by the Ancient One herself to blatantly be the most powerful sorcerer and the best of us.
Strange is meant to be the best of us.
So he must have done it for a reason.
I fear you might be right.
And the insane thing about Scenario 3 is that I didn't even talk or mention the Sanctuary once. However, with the Sanctuary also there raining down hell on, you know, the Avengers as well as the city, you might not even need Thanos. The Sanctuary might be able to kill basically everyone without Thanos lifting a single finger. That's how crazy of a mismatch Scenario 3 is. And in case you're thinking, oh, I'm taking that, I'm wanking for the sake of wanking. Like, the Sanctuary was capable of, like, killing Leviathans, sending Scarlet Witch flying. Like, even with her chaos magic, she couldn't block the blasts. Like, that's how insane it was. It required dozens of sorcerers to use their magic to create shields for the Avengers. That's how insane it is, and how much of a mismatch Scenario 3 is. On to the final round, Scenario 4. Essentially, if all the Avengers were united, could they stop this version of Thanos? And once again, I would have to say that no, Thanos would stomp. You see, even with all of these guys united, Thanos just has such a huge power advantage with these 3 Infinity Stones. I mean, as you saw here in the Titan battle, he was capable of dispatching all of the Guardian members with just a single attack from the Power Stone, which is one of the 3 stones that he has in this fight. There's really nothing stopping him from doing the same, and only a couple of the characters on the Avengers team would be able to withstand it. Not to mention, he could literally turn the entire city against them with the Power Stone. I don't think he'd be able to use the moon. As you can see here, he does use the Space Stone in order to fast travel the moon to Titan's surface, but he could definitely use the city's skyscrapers, just turn it all into a massive, death orb or something to use against the Avengers. Once again, the mirror dimension would be no help whatsoever. Thanos could simply destroy it with the Power Stone as he did in Infinity War. Not to mention, the Ancient One isn't impervious to harm even in the mirror dimension, and I think that if Caecilius can fatally wound her, Thanos with 3 Infinity Stones could do the same. And if you take the mirror dimension out of the factor, well, with all of the chaos going on from Thanos with these stones, it would essentially boil down to, once again, a 1v1 between Thanos and the Ancient One. But I think that he has so much raw power on his side that it really wouldn't go well for her. Like, realistically, he just has too much in his corner. He has one of the most powerful weapons with the Power Stone. He can effectively fuck around with reality whenever he wants with the Reality Stone, and he can counter her astral attacks with the Soul Stone. Realistically, she could try delay the inevitable with the Time Stone, which is the only Infinity Stone she possesses. But I don't think it's enough, and Strange even looked into the future and he saw there were millions of possibilities. He would have likely tried this and it would have almost certainly failed. So realistically, I think it would fail for her as well.
How many did you see?
14,605. How many did we win?
At the end of the day, Thanos with 3 Infinity Stones is just a powerhouse. And to be completely honest, I think that the only reason that the Avengers even lasted as long as they did against a Thanos with 4 Infinity Stones on Titan was purely because Doctor Strange knew what to do. But even then, he had to lose that battle in order to win later on. And they wouldn't have that knowledge in this scenario, so I think that realistically, they'd try every trick in the book in order to win, but I just don't think they'd stand a chance, and I think they would lose maybe 9.5, 10 times out of 10. However, they would have to work implicitly as a team, pulling off all sorts of god tier maneuvers in order to win. Maybe the Ancient One would have to abuse literally all the power she has from the Dark Dimension in order to counter the Infinity Stones. I don't see that being a thing, but maybe she can do it, who knows. Anyway guys, that's all I have for you today. This has been Lewis of TheGamingRift. If you enjoy more content like this, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Turn on notifications, and I'll see you on the next one.